Hey guys, I'm Alex. Tonight, we're diving into a quiet idea that may change the way you carry yourself in this loud, reactive world. Not every battle is worth picking. Welcome to the Stillness and Strength channel, my quiet little corner of the internet where we breathe, reflect, and return to what truly matters. The world may not be yours to control, but your mind, that's your kingdom. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I love knowing who's on the other side of this quiet night. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk into a room and immediately feel it, the air is tight. Something was said before you entered. Someone's words hang like leftover smoke in the corners. You don't know the details, but your gut tightens, your mind begins to race, and the itch to do something surfaces. Is this your moment to intervene, to defend someone, to explain, correct, protect? Your heart beats faster not because you're in danger, but because your ego flares at the scent of friction. You've been here before, and in the past you picked the fight. You stepped into the storm believing that your clarity, your justice, your voice could fix it. And what happened? A mess, emotional residue, sleepless nights. So now here tonight you try something else. You pause. You do nothing. You let the ripple come to you and you let it pass. You're not avoiding. You're not suppressing. You're practicing one of the greatest Stoic teachings, the discipline of perception, the choice not to turn a ripple into a storm. Epictetus once said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgment about things." What if the judgment that this moment needs a reaction, needs your intervention, is simply wrong? Sometimes the strongest person in the room is not the loudest, not the smartest, not even the kindest, but the one who can stand still in discomfort and not immediately move to fix it. Imagine you're standing in a shallow stream. A leaf floats toward you. You can reach down and push it away, or you can let it pass around your legs downriver, never to return. Now imagine that leaf is someone's passive-aggressive comment, someone's scowl, someone's unresolved drama. Do you bend down, grab it, stir the waters, or do you stand still and let it go? There's a quiet paradox here, that not responding is a response, one with more weight than words. Silence has a gravity that speech often lacks. Stillness radiates a message. I choose my battles. And this one, it's not mine. But choosing not to engage isn't always easy, especially when everything inside you demands that you act, that you defend your name, that you restore justice, that you correct the unfairness, the ignorance, the insult. Yet here's the truth that stings a little and frees a lot. Not every insult deserves an answer. Not every unfairness needs to be made fair by you. Not every problem becomes yours just because you've noticed it. You are not obligated to respond to every emotional ping like a device. You are not a machine wired to react. You are a person with breath and boundaries and the capacity to ask, does this need my energy? Does it deserve my disturbance? Most things, almost all things, don't. Think about the ripple, small, temporary, passing. And think about the storm, big, consuming, often self-made. How many times have you escalated a ripple into a storm because you couldn't sit still? This isn't a call to apathy. This is a call to sovereignty. A call to own your responses the way a captain owns the helm, steady hand, forward gaze, letting the waves do what waves do without abandoning the wheel. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and one of the gentlest Stoics, wrote in his Meditations something remarkable. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. It's not about walking away from everything. It's about seeing clearly which things are yours to carry and which things are just noise. So tonight the ripple arrives again. In your memory, in your inbox, in the room, it comes uninvited, but this time you breathe. You soften your jaw, you ground your feet, you let the ripple pass. And maybe, just maybe, in the quiet that follows, you begin to understand that strength isn't always in the fight. Sometimes, it's in the stillness that chooses not to fight at all. So here's a gentle question to sleep on tonight. What might your life feel like if you stopped turning every ripple into a storm? You hold your anger in your hands and choose to put it down. It's late. The day has left behind a trail of moments, some small, some sharp. You're lying in bed, but your mind is pacing. That thing someone said, unfair, untrue, unnecessary, loops like a low-grade fever behind your eyes. Your fingers twitch with the instinct to type. Maybe a message. Maybe a reply you didn't send earlier. Maybe a post to clear the air, to reclaim your voice, to say what should have been said. The words are right there. You could let them out. And maybe for a moment it would feel good, satisfying, justified, even righteous. But beneath the surface, something steadier speaks. You imagine your anger as a letter, crumpled, creased, but still legible. You unfold it. You read it silently. You even feel the truth in parts of it. And then you ask yourself, what will this solve? Anger, the Stoics believed, is the illusion of control. Seneca warned us. Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. You felt this before. The aftermath of an emotional eruption, how it leaves behind silence that's heavier than the words were, how it stains your energy long after the moment has passed. You sit with the letter a little longer, not to fuel it, not to deny it, but to see it clearly. You feel the burn in your chest, and instead of feeding it, you breathe into it. You hear the rehearsed words on the tip of your tongue, and instead of releasing them, you let them dissolve. You realize the most radical choice available to you is this: to be angry and not act from it, to let the fire warm you but not scorch the room. That's power. That's restraint, not as suppression but as freedom, the freedom to respond rather than react, the freedom to know you are more than this one feeling. There's something else that lives underneath this fire. A wound, maybe, a sense of betrayal, a need to be heard, to be seen. But you are here now and you are seeing it all without needing to make someone else carry your hurt. The world teaches us to be expressive, to say it, show it, post it, prove it. But the Stoics taught something else, that dignity is often invisible. That peace is earned quietly. That wisdom is often choosing not to do the thing you can easily justify doing. So instead of pressing send, you close your eyes. You imagine your anger like ink fading from a page, still there but softer. And what's left behind? You. Still intact, untangled. You haven't lost anything by not reacting. In fact, you've gained something, a kind of sacred distance between stimulus and response. That's where freedom lives. In that small space where you choose not to let someone else's chaos become your own. Tonight, you write the unsent letter. You pour your frustration into its lines, but you don't mail it. You don't announce it. You don't even keep it. You burn it in your mind's eye. And what rises from the ashes isn't bitterness, it's clarity. You don't need to win. You don't need to be right tonight. You just need to rest. And maybe that's the paradox. When you refuse to let anger lead, you win something deeper, peace. So here's a question to sit with in the quiet. What truth remains when your anger has nothing left to defend? You sit in a conversation that burns and let silence speak for you. It begins, as these moments often do, with something small. A comment thrown too sharply, a voice that rises too quickly. You didn't intend to walk into tension, but here you are again, sitting across from someone whose words carry a strange heat. They say something that stings. You feel it in your stomach first. Not pain exactly, more like the old reflex to do something, to correct them, defend yourself, restore the story, push back, clarify, but instead you wait. You listen not just to their words but to your reaction forming. And then you do something deeply uncommon. You say nothing. It's not silence out of fear. It's not avoidance. It's not surrender. It's presence. A kind of still awareness that doesn't need to rush in and patch the moment. Because sometimes truth reveals itself most clearly when left undisturbed. You let the silence hang. It's uncomfortable, yes, even unnatural. The world doesn't like pauses. We've trained ourselves to fill every space with explanation, justification, a laugh, a quick shift of topic. But here now you choose to sit in the pause. And that's the strength. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, said, We have two ears and one mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. And silence, real silence, is not the absence of voice. It's the presence of restraint, a chosen quietness. As the words settle around you, you realize, not every truth needs defending. Not every wound needs to be aired. Not every misunderstanding needs to be immediately unraveled. Some truths grow stronger in stillness. Some wrongs become obvious only when you don't push back. You've seen it before, how arguing often reinforces the very thing you want to dissolve. How trying to explain yourself to someone not ready to hear only deepens the distance. So you sit quietly but not passively. Your silence is not weak. It's a message. You're saying, I hear you, but I do not need to respond to be whole. I do not need to win this to be at peace. This is what it means to own your space, to stay inside your inner citadel, as Marcus Aurelius described it, that unshakable center where the world cannot reach you unless you invite it in. Silence can be misread, yes. People might project their own fears into it, but that's theirs to wrestle with. You don't have to fight every shadow someone casts on you. In this quiet, something strange begins to happen. The conversation loses its charge. The fire flickers out, or the other person slows. Or they sense the edge has softened. Your stillness invited them without pressure to meet you there. And even if they don't, you still win something profound. The knowledge that you didn't let the moment pull you out of alignment. That's the gift of practiced silence. It protects your peace and sometimes teaches more than words ever could. You may walk away tonight without the satisfaction of being understood. That's hard. But you walk away with your dignity intact, your energy preserved, your evening unburned. And over time, you'll come to see that silence, chosen silence, becomes one of your most trusted companions. It says, I know who I am and I don't have to say it every time. So here's a gentle question to end this night. When you let silence speak, what truths begin to echo back to you? You face a loss and stop fighting what time has already claimed. It comes quietly, this kind of battle, the one with no enemy, no obvious opponent, only the cold absence of what used to be. Maybe someone you loved is gone. Maybe a season of your life has ended. Maybe something invisible has shifted and you can't put it back. Loss has its own language. And grief speaks in moments when no one else is around. It's the empty chair, the silent phone, the photo you scroll past too quickly, the memory that knocks at midnight, and part of you still wants to fight it. You want to argue with time, plead with the past, rewrite the script. You want to resist the finality, the hard edge of no more. But tonight, lying there in the hush of everything, you wonder, what would it mean to stop fighting what cannot be undone? The Stoics remind us that death, in all its forms, is not a failure, but a function of life. Epictetus said, what harm is there while you are kissing your child to murmur softly, tomorrow you will die? Not as cruelty, as reverence. To remember that nothing truly ours can be kept, and that all we love on loan. You remember the warmth of that person, the rhythm of that old life, the way your body used to carry itself before the world changed. And you grieve not only what is gone, but the self you were when it was still here. This is a different kind of war, not against others, but against what is. And every time you resist, every time you pretend it didn't happen, or shouldn't have, or should have lasted longer, you exhaust yourself in a fight no one wins. But what if, just for this evening, you put down your weapons? What if you stop trying to change the past with your thoughts? What if you let sorrow be not a signal of weakness, but of love? The ache you carry is evidence that you lived with open hands, that you let someone or something matter to you deeply. And isn't that what we're here for? To be moved, to care, to lose, yes, but only because we dared to hold something so tightly. You breathe now slowly, as if each breath honors the space they once filled. You don't rush. You don't resist. You let grief move through you like wind through the trees, bending you, not breaking you. No need to fix it. No need to explain it. You just sit with it. And somehow in the quiet something sacred settles. Not closure, but peace. Acceptance is not approval. It's not agreement. It's not forgetting. It's recognizing that reality does not bend to your will and choosing, gently, to live in alignment with it anyway. There's a stoic strength in that. Not a cold detachment, but a fiery, grounded kind of wisdom that whispers, "This moment hurts, and still I am here. Still I am whole." You will carry this loss with you, yes, but not as a weapon anymore, not as resistance, more like a scar, faded, softened, part of you. And that scar will remind you, not of what you've lost, but of how deeply you've loved. So tonight, ask yourself, what would it feel like to stop fighting what time has already taken and start honoring what it gave you instead? You watch expectations dissolve and find freedom in their absence. It starts with a familiar pattern. You imagine how things would unfold: a day, a conversation, a relationship, maybe even a whole season of your life. You built a quiet script in your head, how they would show up, how success would look, how progress would feel. But reality, as it often does, forgot to read your script. The message didn't come. The effort wasn't noticed. The change didn't happen. Or it did, but in a way you didn't ask for: slower, messier, unfamiliar. And now you feel it, that subtle ache of unmet expectations. It doesn't scream, it simmers. Quiet disappointment, a pulling in your chest, a restless search for why. This is the war within. You thought peace would come when things aligned, when people behaved, when results appeared. But tonight you ask, what if peace comes when expectations fall away? The Stoics warned us, again and again, about the burden of expectation. Epictetus said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." You lie there now, not disturbed by what happened, but by what you thought should have happened. And there's the key, the should, that invisible demand you made on the world. That quiet contract no one signed but you still tried to enforce. You expected them to text back. You expected your work to be noticed. You expected progress to feel linear. You expected yourself to be stronger, quicker, more certain by now. And those expectations, they hurt more than reality ever did. You breathe into that. You let the disappointment rise, not to analyze or fix, but simply to see it for what it is. Your mind holding onto an image of how things should have been. And with every breath out, you loosen your grip on that image. You see now. Expectations are not plans, they are attachments. And attachments, when rigid, become traps. You are not free when everything goes your way. You are free when you no longer need it to. That's not passivity, it's power. Because now, in the absence of demands, you can finally see the moment as it is, unfiltered, imperfect, and still worthy of your attention. You remember what Marcus Aurelius wrote: "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." You turn your face toward what is, not what was supposed to be, and you begin to soften. The world becomes lighter when you stop carrying the weight of imagined outcomes. You begin to trust again, not in the world behaving, but in your ability to adapt. And that trust, that's the beginning of something unshakable. You don't have to lower your hopes. You don't have to pretend you don't care. You simply choose to stop confusing hope with entitlement. You do your part, you show up, you care. And then you let go, and that letting go, it's not giving up, it's growing up. It's choosing to live not in fantasy, but in the fullness of what is. So tonight, as you lie here, breathe in the truth. The world owes you nothing. And breathe out the freedom that comes with that. Because when you stop expecting life to look a certain way, you begin to notice how much beauty was here all along. So here's your question for the quiet. What would happen if you let go of your expectations and trusted the moment to be enough? You step back from the need to win and discover the peace of letting go. It creeps in subtly, this urge to win. Not just arguments, but approval, applause, the last word. The clean victory in an invisible scoreboard you never agreed to keep. You replay a conversation in your mind. Maybe you didn't say what you wanted. Maybe they misunderstood you. Maybe you feel like they walked away thinking they were right. And a part of you burns, not from injustice, but from the quiet sting of not being seen the way you wanted. This is the unspoken battle. The desire to control how others perceive you, to come out on top, to look wise, to sound clever, to be respected, admired, untouchable. But tonight you're tired, not just physically, emotionally. You fought too many invisible wars that no one even knows about. And maybe, just maybe, you're ready to ask, what if being right isn't the goal? The Stoics warned about ego, that subtle thief of peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." There's no mention of defending yourself, no obsession with appearing perfect, just truth. And truth doesn't always wear your face. Sometimes it means they don't understand you, and that's okay. Sometimes it means letting someone else have the last word, because the echo it leaves behind isn't worth the noise. Sometimes it means choosing peace over pride. You don't have to shrink yourself to let go. Letting go is not self-erasure. It's self-respect. It's saying, my inner calm matters more than public victory. You lie here, remembering moments when you won the debate, the sharp comeback, the flawless performance, and still felt empty afterward. Because winning doesn't always fill the hollow inside. But something else does. Grace. You feel it now. That quiet decision to stop proving. To stop correcting every narrative that doesn't flatter you. To stop needing to be the smartest person in the room. Instead, you rest in something deeper, a knowing. You know who you are. You know what you meant. You know your effort, your intention, your growth. That's enough. You learn to walk away not because you lost, but because you're no longer playing a game you didn't choose. This is inner freedom. When you stop trading your peace for external validation, you begin to wonder, as your breath slows and your body softens, what if you didn't have to be understood by everyone? What if you only had to be at peace with yourself? You feel the tension leaving your shoulders, the same tension that's followed you into conversations, decisions, quiet battles. You see it now. The desire to win is often fear in disguise. Fear of irrelevance, of rejection, of being unseen. But you are seen by yourself, by the part of you that watches all of this unfold and whispers, you don't have to push so hard anymore. So tonight, you don't finish the sentence in your head. You don't draft the clever reply. You don't climb the mountain of being right. You step down, you let it go, you return to your breath. And the strange thing is, you don't feel smaller, you feel stronger. Because real strength is quiet. It doesn't argue. It doesn't announce. It simply is. So here's the night's question. What would it feel like to let go of the need to win and rest in the quiet confidence of simply being? You feel the storm of emotion rise and choose not to drown in it. It's sudden but not unfamiliar. That spike of emotion, anger, fear, sadness, shame, rising like a wave, fast and full. You feel it before you can name it. In your chest, your jaw, the way your breath shortens. Something got under your skin. Or deep into it. The urge comes quickly, react. Say something, do something, flee, fight, prove, explain, protect. But you don't, you pause, not because you're numb, not because it doesn't matter, but because you know this feeling. And you know it isn't the whole truth. You're learning not to trust the first wave. Seneca once wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." This here is your moment to prove yourself, not to anyone else but to the part of you that's trying to remember, I am not my emotion. I am the space it moves through. You breathe. Slowly. You don't suppress it. You don't shame yourself for feeling it. Stoicism isn't about being robotic, it's about being rooted. Emotion is wind, it shakes the branches, but you are the tree. You feel it rise again, that thought, that tightness, the story forming fast in your mind. It wants a reaction. It wants you to believe that this moment is all that matters, that you must act now. But you don't. You give it time. Because you've learned that emotion is weather and weather always passes. The Stoics taught us to look at impressions, the instant thoughts and judgments that fly into the mind, and pause. To ask, is this true? Is this helpful? Is this mine, or was it planted by fear, ego, old wounds? You ask gently now, what am I believing right now that might not be accurate? That you're in danger, that you're unworthy, that they meant to hurt you, maybe, but maybe not. And even if they did, so what? You still get to choose who you become in response. That's the essence of Stoic power, not the absence of storms but the skill of sailing through them. And the more you practice, the sooner you recognize the signs. You learn the difference between a wave and the ocean. You watch your thoughts without obeying them. You feel your anger rise, and you hold it gently, like something sharp you don't want to drop or clutch. You speak to your fear like a child in the dark and say, "I see you. You're safe." You let your sadness pass through, like a cold wind across your skin, present but not permanent. And in that, you gain something few ever do. Emotional agency. Not control over what arises, but mastery over what you do with it. That's the battle most people never see. The one inside. The choice to respond with clarity when reaction is the easier road. You feel the moment start to settle. The intensity softens. The emotion passes like a cloud that no longer needs to rain, and you're still here, still whole. You don't need to apologize for feeling. You don't need to explain it away. You only need to remember that emotion is information, not instruction. So as you rest now, ask yourself, what changes when you stop drowning in your emotions and begin simply letting them pass? You notice the urge to control and release your grip on what was never yours. It happens almost without thinking. You make plans. You double-check. You anticipate outcomes, people's reactions, tomorrow's weather, even next year's version of you. You run simulations in your mind, hoping that by imagining everything, you'll protect yourself from anything. But the truth is, control is comforting, until it isn't. You think it keeps you safe, but often it just keeps you tense. Because even when you get it all right, something shifts. People change their minds. The unexpected arrives. Reality veers left when you swore it should have gone right. And what you're left with isn't always chaos, just the deep, subtle ache of disappointment. The Stoics knew this ache well. Epictetus reminded his students, some things are in our control and some things are not. A simple truth. And yet it unravels so much of the anxiety you carry. You feel it now, the knot in your chest that comes from trying to control what isn't yours to command. Someone else's opinion, a partner's behavior, a colleague's tone, the pace of your healing, the direction of the world. You've spent so much energy shaping things that were never in your hands. But tonight here, in the quiet, you begin to unclench. You release the grip slowly, like someone setting down a weight they've carried too long. And as your fingers metaphorically open, you start to feel something rare, space. Space to breathe, to adjust, to simply be. Control, you realize, was never peace. It was pressure disguised as security. You remember now that life is fluid, not fixed. People are unpredictable, circumstances shift. The future is always under construction, and rather than fearing that, you begin to bow to it. Because flexibility isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the willingness to meet life where it is, not just where you wanted it to be. You breathe in slowly and name what is in your control tonight, your breath, your attention, your choices, your tone, your response. That's your kingdom, everything else. It belongs to the world, and the world has never asked your permission to change. You think of a river winding through terrain it didn't design. It doesn't resist the bends. It simply flows, shaping stone, carving canyons, becoming something vast without ever needing certainty. What would it feel like to be like that? To stop building walls and start trusting your ability to swim. You think of the times you clung to someone's affection, or your schedule, or your health plan, or your perfect idea of how life should unfold. And you see now it wasn't love. It wasn't mastery, it was fear. And fear can't hold anything gently. But tonight you can. You let go not with despair but with dignity. Not as surrender but as sovereignty. Because letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you finally know the difference between effort and attachment. You'll still plan, still prepare, still show up, but you won't worship control. You'll meet life with open hands, not clenched fists. And in that space, something soft and powerful begins to return: trust. So here's the question that whispers across the quiet. What would change if you stopped gripping the uncontrollable and placed your faith in your ability to respond instead? You walk through the fear of loss, and realize how little was ever truly yours. It starts as most fears do with something precious. A relationship, a role, a routine, a dream, your health, a person you love. You cradle it close, guarding it silently. Maybe it's been with you for years. Maybe it just entered your life, but now, even the thought of losing it tightens your chest. You imagine the goodbye, the ending, the silence where once there was connection or purpose or clarity, and it frightens you, because so much of your identity has been wrapped around what you've grown to love or depend on. But tonight, lying here, you turn your face gently toward the truth. Nothing is permanent, and nothing ever was. It's not said with bitterness. Just honesty, the kind that clears the fog. You've already lost things, haven't you? Old friendships, childhood places, versions of yourself you barely recognize now, and though it hurt, you lived. The Stoics reminded themselves daily of this impermanence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That wasn't morbid, it was liberating. Because when you stop pretending things are forever, you begin to see their beauty more clearly. You hold them not with fear, but with gratitude. You don't waste time in resentment. You say the kind word. You let go of small grudges. You show up fully because you know the moment is not a guarantee. You look at what you fear losing, a person, a role, even your youth, and instead of clinging, you begin to whisper, "Thank you. Thank you for being here, for however long you are." That's how we start to live, not by numbing the fear of loss, but by befriending it. You realize with a quiet clarity that what you truly own is much smaller than you thought. Your choices, your principles, your inner posture, that's yours, everything else, on loan, and that's okay. Because when you stop trying to own the world, you start to experience it more deeply. You remember that moment, maybe a smile exchanged with someone at just the right time, a sunrise on a sleepless morning, the way someone held your hand when you didn't have words, and you know, even fleeting things can be sacred. You breathe now into that space. You feel the fear of loss rise, and instead of resisting it, you make room. You say to it, "I see you. You're part of being alive." And in doing that, the fear softens. It loses its edge. You're no longer negotiating with impermanence. You're dancing with it. Because when you stop expecting forever, you finally receive the gift of now. And here's the paradox. The less you try to keep things, the more fully they stay with you. In memory, in meaning, in the soul-shaping imprint they leave behind. So tonight, let yourself feel the fullness of what you love and the gentle truth that you can love it without owning it. And let this be your quiet question. What would it feel like to hold what you love gently, knowing it was never yours to keep, only yours to cherish? You step into silence and hear the voice beneath the noise. There's a kind of quiet that isn't just about sound. It's deeper. A stillness that arrives when the external fades and the internal stops reaching. Most of the day, your mind is busy, not just with thoughts but with grabbing for certainty, recognition, direction, distraction. It's like standing in a crowd of voices all talking at once. Some belong to the world, some to you. But tonight, as you lie still, something soft begins to settle. The volume drops. The need to figure it all out lifts just a little. And you begin to hear something quieter, yourself. Not the version of you who performs or pushes. The deeper self, the one who watches, who waits, who knows. This self doesn't speak loudly. It doesn't argue. It doesn't chase validation. It simply is. The Stoics knew this space well. They spoke often of solitude, not isolation, but interior refuge. The kind Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." That quote used to confuse you, maybe. Your own mind doesn't always feel like a refuge. Sometimes it's more like a maze. But here now, in this soft quiet, you glimpse the sanctuary he spoke of. Not a perfect place, but a place where nothing is demanded of you. Where you don't have to earn rest. Where you don't have to explain who you are. You simply get to be. And in that space, strange things begin to surface, gentle insights that don't arrive when you're rushing. You remember who you are when no one's watching. You remember the clarity that comes when you're not trying to impress, fix, or win. You remember the version of yourself that isn't afraid of stillness, but craves it. That version has wisdom, patience, a kind of strength that doesn't shout. You begin to realize not every answer needs to come now. Not every question needs solving. Sometimes what you need isn't clarity but presence. And silence is how presence finds you. You're reminded that the world is noisy by design. That silence must be chosen. You won't always have hours to retreat, but you can build moments. A few seconds between breath and reaction. A pause before responding. A single breath in a crowded room. That's how the soul speaks, not in paragraphs but in pauses. You listen now, not for words but for understanding. You don't need to name every feeling. You don't need to define this peace. You only need to receive it. And with that, something inside you relaxes. You don't need more information right now. You don't need another podcast, another headline, another opinion. You need this, your own quiet heartbeat. The feeling of breath as it moves in and out. The strange and sacred stillness that tells you you're already enough. So tonight, resist the urge to fill the silence. Let it stretch. Let it echo. Let it hold you. And ask yourself, what wisdom might rise if you stopped trying to speak and simply began to listen? You meet resistance and learn the difference between effort and force. There's a kind of tiredness that doesn't come from doing too much, but from pushing too hard in the wrong direction. You know the feeling, that quiet strain beneath the surface, always trying, always reaching, always insisting that things should be different than they are. You feel it in your shoulders, your breath, your tone. That invisible tension that says, if I don't push, it won't happen. If I don't fight, I'll fall behind. If I let go, everything might fall apart. But tonight you question that story. You lie back, breathe deep, and notice. Not everything that resists you is a signal to push harder. Sometimes it's an invitation to pause, to listen, to align. The Stoics were not about force. They were about right effort. Epictetus said, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. He wasn't telling you to be passive. He was telling you to be wise. There's a difference between disciplined action and anxious striving. One is rooted. The other is reactive. You begin to see it in your own life now. The way you've chased certain outcomes, or tried to fix people, or micromanaged moments out of fear that they wouldn't work out unless you personally controlled the gears. But did that effort bring peace? Or just more exhaustion? You think about the river again, how it shapes stone not by force but by persistence. Not by control but by presence. You wonder how much of your energy has gone into rowing against currents that were never meant for you. And you ask, gently, what would change if you stopped resisting so much? Not giving up, but giving in to the natural flow of your path. You notice how some doors stay closed no matter how hard you push, and how others open with barely a knock. Not everything is yours to make happen. Some things are yours to notice, to receive, to respond to with care. And when you stop fighting what is, when you stop treating life like an opponent, something beautiful happens. You begin to move with life, not against it. You trust that not every hard thing is an enemy, and not every ease is a sign of weakness. You learn to act without forcing, to hold intention without clenching. That's the Stoic paradox. Strength isn't always shown through resistance. Sometimes it shows through surrender, not to circumstance but to reality. You let go of the need to muscle your way through every moment. You choose effort, but only where it's meaningful. You choose rest, not as retreat, but as recalibration. You feel your breath again, steady, strong, unforced. And you realize this is what power feels like when it's rooted in wisdom. Quiet, clear, calm. So tonight, here's your question. What would happen if you replaced force with trust and stopped rowing where you're meant to drift? You feel the pull of ego and remember who you are without the masks. You've built yourself carefully, haven't you? A name, a role, a story, maybe even an image that others recognize. Reliable, ambitious, thoughtful, accomplished. Whatever shield you've crafted to feel steady in a spinning world. And it's served you, this self. But sometimes, late at night, when the noise fades and the expectations lift, you can feel what lies beneath it. Not insecurity, not weakness, but the quiet truth that you are more than any of the labels you carry. The Stoics weren't immune to ego, they just kept it in check. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor with unimaginable power, reminded himself, "You are a soul carrying a corpse," not to insult the body but to stay humble. To remember that even the greatest titles mean nothing if the inner life is neglected. You think now about your own masks, the roles you perform so instinctively that you forget their performances at all. The achiever, the helper, the one who never asks for help, the one who's always composed, always right, always fine, but you're not always fine, and you're not always composed, and maybe that's okay. Maybe the goal isn't to perfect the mask, but to begin gently setting it down, even just for a moment. Here in this space, no one's watching, no one's measuring. You don't have to be on. You don't have to be impressive. You just have to be real, and real isn't polished. Real is raw, honest, quiet, present. You start to feel what ego hides, not shame, but softness, a tender hum of humanity, the part of you that loves without needing to win. The part of you that asks for help, that laughs without trying, that feels wonder without explanation. You return to that version now, not to erase your ambition or diminish your goals, but to hold them differently. Ego clutches. Soul opens. You feel the difference when you act from presence instead of performance. You notice how much peace returns when you no longer need to be right, but simply real. And in that space, you realize the deepest freedom doesn't come from adding more, it comes from shedding what no longer fits. You don't need to be the smartest, or the strongest, or the most admired. You just need to be rooted. And tonight, as you lie still, you return to your roots, not your resume. You're a breath, a witness, a presence, and that's enough. So you whisper to yourself, not a command, but an invitation. Let it go. Let the image dissolve. Let yourself be exactly as you are. And then ask, softly, who are you when no one is watching, and what would it feel like to live from that place more often? You stand at the edge of uncertainty and learn to find peace without answers. There are nights when the mind wants to solve everything. It reaches for conclusions like a hand groping in the dark, trying to name what's coming next, to finish a thought, to close the loop of some unresolved fear. You lie awake and it hums. What if? What now? What then? And the more you feed it, the louder it gets. But tonight, something in you steps back from that edge, not to escape the uncertainty, but to breathe inside it. Because what if not knowing isn't a flaw, but a doorway? The Stoics walked with uncertainty daily. They didn't pretend to know how the gods would move, or when death would come, or how fortune would turn. Instead, they practiced equanimity, that beautiful, steady state of being okay, either way. Seneca said, "If you wish to fear nothing, consider that everything can happen. Not everything will, but everything could." And so, the wise person prepares not by controlling life, but by making peace with its unpredictability. That's hard for you, maybe. You were taught that safety comes from knowing, from planning, from staying one step ahead. But tonight, lying still beneath the vast sky of unanswered questions, you feel a strange shift. You don't need to know everything to feel at home in your life. You just need to stay rooted in what's true now. You take a breath. You feel your weight on the bed. You notice the rhythm of your chest rising and falling. That's real. The rest, thoughts, guesses, projections. You begin to separate the two, and in that space something beautiful opens up, curiosity. You realize that not knowing doesn't have to mean fear. It can mean wonder. You can meet tomorrow not like a battle to win, but like a mystery to experience. You start to see uncertainty as a companion, not a curse. Because what is this life, really, but a long conversation with the unknown? And what if, instead of trying to outsmart it, you just stayed awake inside it? Not with anxiety, but with presence. Not with dread, but with openness. You remember moments in your past where you didn't know what would happen, and yet something unexpected and good emerged. A door you hadn't seen. A path you couldn't have planned. Those moments weren't accidents. They were life reminding you. Not all clarity comes from control. Some clarity only comes after you surrender. And maybe that's enough for tonight. To breathe. To release the mental grip. To let tomorrow arrive on its own feet. So here's the question, whispered in the stillness. What if uncertainty isn't a problem to solve, but a space to grow in slowly, gently, and without fear? You reach for peace and discover it was never far. Sometimes peace feels like a destination, something distant, conditional, a reward for finishing your tasks, solving your problems, or becoming someone better. You think, I'll feel calm when this is over, when I understand, when they change. When I change. But those whens stretch endlessly, and peace keeps moving just out of reach. Tonight, though, you begin to wonder, what if peace isn't a place you reach? What if it's something you return to? The Stoics taught that tranquility isn't about what's happening around you, it's about what you allow to happen within you. Epictetus wrote, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control, not ignoring them, not pretending they don't exist, just letting them be what they are without letting them rule your mind. You sit with that. You think about how many days have been quietly stolen, not by catastrophe, but by distraction, agitation, chasing things you couldn't change. And then you think about the moments when you've truly felt free. Not when everything was perfect, but when you stopped grasping, when you exhaled, when you saw things clearly and simply let them be. Peace isn't the absence of noise. It's your refusal to be owned by it. It's the space between stimulus and response, that sliver of stillness where your power lives. You begin to see that peace isn't something added to you. It's revealed, the way the sky is revealed when clouds drift apart. It's always been there, underneath the worry, beneath the striving. You didn't lose peace. You covered it, with overthinking, with tension, with the belief that things must go a certain way before you can rest. But rest doesn't wait for circumstances, it waits for permission. Yours. So tonight you give it. You don't need to finish everything. You don't need to explain anything. You can simply lie here alive, breathing, awake in this one sacred moment. The world keeps turning. The waves keep rising and falling. But you let the ocean be the ocean. You let your breath move like the tide. And in that surrender you feel it. Not the peace you hope to find someday, but the peace that's been whispering beneath it all. So let it in, not as a reward, but as a birthright. And let this question guide you. If peace is not something you chase, but something you uncover, what layers can you gently let go of tonight? You come home to stillness and realize you were never lost. The night deepens, the thoughts slow, and now there's only this. The quiet shape of your breath, the gentle weight of your body resting, and a sense that you've come full circle. You've wandered through emotion, conflict, surrender, and truth. You've seen the illusion of control, touched the edge of uncertainty, met your ego with kindness, and tasted the sweetness of letting go. And all along, something in you remained constant, steady, present. That's the still point. The inner citadel the Stoics spoke of. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "People look for retreats for themselves in the country, by the sea, in the mountains. But you can retreat into yourself any time you want. Nowhere is more peaceful or free from trouble than your own soul." And here you are. You've returned not to an answer, but to an awareness that peace isn't something you wait for. It's something you cultivate. Stillness doesn't mean silence outside. It means quiet within. And strength. It's not about how much you can carry. It's about how deeply you can stay rooted, especially when life gets loud. Tonight, as the world hums softly in the background, you carry no burdens. You chase no outcomes. You hold nothing but the space you're in. This moment is whole. It asks for nothing more. And so the practice becomes simple. Breathe. Notice. Allow. You let go of what you can't control again and again, like the tide. You feel the softness of the sheets beneath you, the cool air brushing your skin, the pulse of life inside your chest, steady, ancient, undemanding. You're not preparing for battle. You're not performing. You're just being. And that is enough. You've learned in this quiet journey that not every battle is worth picking. Not every thought needs your attention. Not every feeling requires a reaction. And not every path forward is found by force. Sometimes the greatest strength is your willingness to sit still, to feel, to trust, and to wait. Because in that stillness something sacred returns: clarity, compassion, calm. So as your eyes grow heavy and your breath softens like morning fog on a quiet lake, you rest not just your body but your spirit. You are safe here, held, rooted, whole. And when tomorrow comes, it will find you lighter. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You'll move with more grace. You'll speak with more kindness. You'll choose your battles with wisdom and let the rest pass like clouds across an open sky. You are not here to fix everything. You are here to meet each moment fully, then release.